April 4th, 2024, AMATS Technical Advisory Committee meeting to order. The time is 1:02 p.m. Aaron, would you please do the roll call?
Of course. Taylor Keegan. Brian Lindemood. Yami Alimi.
Present.
Matt Stitchick.
Present online.
Steve Rebuffo.
I am present.
You, Galen Jones for Luke Bowen.
Present.
You, Ben White.
Present.
Brad Coy.
Here.
Melinda Colhaas.
Here.
Jamie Acton.
Here.
And Craig Lyon.
Here.
You have quorum. Everybody is here today. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Once a year.
Okay, so let's then move on to the public involvement announcement. You wouldn't mind reading that, Aaron? That'd be great.
Of course, AMATS committee meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are first presented by staff or consultants. After the committee discusses the business item, the public is invited to formally comment. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak on their topic. Couple of housekeeping items. If you're joining us virtually and you're not a member of the committee, please turn your camera off when you're not speaking on an item. If you're joining us by phone, to mute and unmute the microphone, press *6. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Next on the agenda is actually the approval of the agenda. We have a motion moved to approve. Okay. So moved by Mr. Lyon, second by Mr. Alimi. Are there any changes that are needed to the agenda?
Yes, we do have at least one change that I can mention. So we need to add the air quality conformity demonstration to the tip. I forgot to add it to the agenda in my haste to post. So if we could please add that as the first action item toward the tip amendment itself. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to was the non-conformity determination?
It's the air quality conformity demonstration.
Okay, air quality.
I have a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to add an item to the agenda, a new item 5A, to approve the air quality conformity determination for the 23 to 26 tip amendment number 2. And to renumber the other business items to reflect that. The air quality conformity determination has to be approved prior to approving the amendment. So that's why it has to be 5A.
Okay, so everything else will be known by B, C, D, E.
Yes.
So we have a motion,
Evan.
seconded by Ms. Keegan. So are there any objections to the, I guess that's not the motion, that's the amendment, to the amendment of the agenda? Okay, hearing none, that amendment is approved. Are there any other changes that we need to make here?
Yes, there is one other, I believe.
Okay. Go ahead.
Want to apologize, we got this to you all late, but we've got an amendment to add discussion on a letter of support from AMATS in regard to DOT pursuing a federal discretionary grant. So we can go into more detail at that time, but I'd like to add that one to the agenda under 5B.
So that will be an action item. And you want to go after the tip, but before the AMATS CAC comments. And where's that you want it right here?
Oh, it could go anywhere.
Do we put it at the end of the action
Yeah, let's
item?
put it E, let's put it as E.
So it'll actually come F because
Yeah.
we just rename these all the way down. So
Let's put it as 5F.
5F. Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
That's Stitchick second.
Second by Mr. Stitchick. To add the AMATS letter of support for DOT&PF PPPP grant application as action item 5F. Are there any objections to that motion or to that amendment to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the item is added as 5F. Other changes to the agenda today? Okay, so with those amendments, do we have any objections to approving the agenda as amended? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved. The amended agenda is approved. Next is to look at the meeting minutes. And do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Yeah, move to approve. Steve Rebuffo.
Okay, I think Mr. Alimi beat you, Mr. O'Rourke. Do you want to turn yours into a second? Okay, so Mr. Lee moved, Mr. White seconded.
That's all we got.
Sorry, I guess you had to be here in person, Steve, to win that one out. So are there any changes that are needed to the minutes? Okay, are there any objections to approving the meeting minutes then? Okay, that motion is approved. Meeting minutes are approved for, that's March 7th, 2024. The next we'll move on to action item 5A. Is there a new one, the 2023 to 2026 TIP amendment number 2, air quality conformity determination. Is that one that you'll take on
That'll
there?
be me, yep. I think most of today will be me, so should be a fun ride. Okay, everybody, thank you for adding this to the agenda. So as you know, we've been working on TIP amendment number 2 for a couple of months now. Back in December, the committee's approved to have it released for a 45-day public comment period, along with the air quality conformity demonstration. I do want to let you know that we have had discussions that we need to stop calling it a determination, because AMATS does not make the determination, but FHWA makes the determination. We make the demonstration that FHWA reviews. So we'll make sure to have that correct on the agenda for the policy committee. It's a change in name. Don't worry about it. We're fine. It's just clarification for everybody. So the demonstration was put out for a 45-day public comment period along with the TIP, and no comments were received on the demonstration. This demonstration is used to confirm if the limited maintenance area status for CO and PM10 is still eligible based on the transportation control measures as required by the SIP, statewide improvement program, and to make sure that none of the projects that we are adding, removing, or changing in the amendment negatively impact our ability to continue implementing these control measures. As reviewed by the interagency consultation team on October 25th, and in this document, you'll see here that it's not anticipated to impact the ability to continue the air quality maintenance within our area. And I'm sure if I got this wrong, somebody can go ahead and correct me. So it's before you today for review, and staff is asking you to review and recommend approval to the policy committee. Just as a note, as was said earlier, the demonstration is required to be approved prior to final approval by the committees of the TIP amendment itself. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, are there any comments from the public? Okay, looks like no members of the public either. What's the will of the committee?
Move to approve. Recommend approval to the policy committee of the demonstration. Sorry.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lyon,
Second by.
second by Mr. Leaming, to forward to the policy committee recommend approval of the air quality conformity demonstration. Are there any objections to the motion? Okay, hearing none, that is approved unanimously. Item 5B, AMATS. Let's see, so the 2023-2026 TIP Amendment 2 is now before us, is item 5B. Karen, would you? You said that too, so.
Yeah. That's okay. This one will be a little longer, so bear with me as I go through the memo. If you want to switch over to the memo one, yeah, we can go ahead and go through this, because this kind of explains all the changes that are being made based on the public comments as well as additional review by staff. So as I said earlier, we put the TIP amendment number 2 out for 45-day public comment period and included a public hearing at the Anchorage Assembly. 50 comments were received from the public, which are in the attached comment response summary and have been responded to by staff. And it also includes 33 edits from staff based on public comments and or project status updates. So I kind of wanted to go through the summary below, and I'm happy to help answer questions as we get through them. So if you have one as I'm talking, just let me know. First overall change, all illustrative projects in the tip tables are being removed from the actual tip tables and then put in as Appendix C in the tip narrative itself. The reason for this is because illustrative projects are not part of the fiscal constraint analysis of the tip. And so when we put them in the tip tables, it's really confusing for everybody because they think they're part of the actual tip. And that when we do our demonstration and we do our fiscal analysis, that we're doing it on those projects, even though we're not. So the intent here is to move them out of the tip tables itself, but still keep them as part of the overall tip by putting them in as an appendix in the narrative. So people can see that, okay, if additional funding comes available, this is where the committees have said they would like that funding to go towards. And then projects can be pulled from there and put into the tip. So just keep that in mind as we go forward and go through some of these tables. I'll explain more as we get there. Next, table 1 summary. So we updated table 1 to include the carry forward amounts for STBG, CRP, and TAP. These are the revenue amounts. We had the cost, but we were missing the revenue in there. So now it's hopefully easier for people to see that when we say we have some carry forward funding, what is that? Is that above and beyond your normal? Yes, it is above and beyond our normal. It's typically previous year's funding that was not obligated that is carried forward to a future year. And we have a set amount of that that's considered revenue that we have to incorporate in our fiscal constraint analysis. So this is just adding that in to hopefully be a little more clear for everybody, the public, FHWA, seeing where that funding is coming from. Okay, table 2. So real quick, the Spenard Road rehabilitation, we reduced the STBG funding and increased the carry forward funding. So basically, we're just switching funding sources and putting more towards the carry forward to utilize that funding and free up some of our regular STBG funding for other needs. Spenard Road Rehab increased the funding in FY24 for right-of-way from 2.5 to 5 million, so about doubling that. East 4th Avenue signals and lighting upgrade reflect funding in FY24 for design right-of-way and then move the utilities construction to 25. Potter Drive rehabilitation at 800,000 in FY24 for design. Mountain Air Drive reduced the beyond 26 from 13 to 11.5 to reflect the updated cost estimates. Academy Vanguard Drive moved the FY26 right-of-way funding to beyond FY26. Motorized pavement preservation projects increased the funding in FY24 by 500,000, reduced the funding in 25 to 3.996, and increased the funding in FY26 to 8.10 from 865. Basically reshuffling some of the money to match up with the project timelines for the pavement projects. So it's a pretty significant increase in certain years. Chugach Way rehabilitation increased funding in FY26 to by 400,000 and reduce beyond 26 funding by 200,000 to update current cost estimates. 3rd Avenue signals and lighting move 100,000 from FY24 to FY25 for design. 32nd Avenue upgrade at $1 million in FY25 for design. And then 5th Avenue signals and lighting upgrade move the project to illustrative as there is no funding available in FY26. Because of the changes that were made that you'll kind of see later for some of the other projects, it basically meant we had to use the money that was allocated in FY26 for that project on other already underway projects or projects that would be started prior to the 5th Avenue one. So staff's recommendation is move this 5th Avenue signals and lighting upgrade, just this portion, which I think is L to H Street, to illustrative, and it'll be part of the illustrative like portion H to Cordova, I believe. Okay, table 3. Non-motorized table, downtown trail connection, move the right-of-way utilities and construction to FY25 instead of FY24 based on the current project schedule. This project slippage did cause some pretty significant ripples throughout the tip. So that's why you see like the 5th Avenue signal and lighting project delayed, because we have to do a lot of rearranging of our fiscal assumptions to accommodate this slippage. That's why we try and work very closely with DOT so we can anticipate this and get it in as soon as possible. Fish Creek Trail connection, use TAP funding instead of STBG funding in FY24 and move the utilities construction funding from FY25 to FY26 based on project schedule and available funding. Active transportation pavement replacement decreased the funding in FY '25 and decreased the funding in FY '26 to reflect available funding. Unfortunately, because of the shifting we had to do to absorb the project slippages, the active transportation pavement replacement pot did have to help absorb some of those changes. We are still planning on moving forward with design efforts to get projects shovel ready or ready in case additional funding comes available. So we are constantly monitoring that with the Municipality of Anchorage and Department of Transportation. And then we're recommending adding a new project in based on public feedback as well as available funding. Eagle River Road pathway, Eagle River Loop Road to Mile High Avenue, about 2 miles worth of pathway. We have 400,000 in design in FY '24, 239,000 in design in FY '26, and 3.4 million in beyond FY '26. As you know, we did have to recommend removal of the Eagle River Road rehabilitation project, which also had a pathway component to it. So this is pulling out a portion of that pathway component to start getting moving on that project. Plans and studies. 3 really quick. The corridor plans for Tudor, Northern Lights, Benson, and AC is adding additional 200,000. After staff went through and did the RFP for the Minnesota and INL corridor study, it was determined additional funding is going to be needed for future projects to help with some efforts that need to be done, like modeling and things like that. So DOT staff did ask an additional 200,000 for those 3 studies. Table 6, pavement replacement, added a new pathway project for active transportation. It's the Sitka Street Park pathway. This is in coordination with MOA, DOT, about trying to get some more pathway projects in there and funded or design started at this point. So that was the recommendation. Table 7. Sorry, I'm moving quickly because we have a lot of stuff on the agenda. So I know it's a lot. Table 7, updated Table 7 to include descriptions for all HSIP projects. I want to thank DOT very much for getting me this information. I apologize it is so last minute. I know some people have asked for it, so now that it is available, I will send it out to those individuals. We have finally added descriptions for every HSIP project in the tip today. Good moving forward. I did want to let you know, I had a nice coordination meeting with DOT today, in which we talked about HSIP projects and how to better involve AMATS and AMATS committees, so AMATS staff and AMATS committees. Right now, the recommendation is that we hold a work session with the TAC and PC to go through every 2 major HSIP projects that we have some questions for the committees on, and then make it available for the committees to ask other questions on the rest of the HSIP projects. The intent there is to get your feedback on the projects, and then provide that feedback to the DOT as they're continuing moving forward on this. You know, making sure they're in alignment with AMATS plans. Are there areas of concerns that they may not know about? You know, what does the AMATS safety plan say? Or what is, you know, the flashing yellow arrow and signal head display improvements really mean? And what locations and how are those locations selected? So unless somebody has an immediate objection, I'll probably be sending out a little doodle poll or something to get that started as soon as possible. I recognize this is after the fact, but DOT and staff are working very diligently to adjust the process. So next go around, the committees can look forward to being part of the scoping of these projects as well as nominations for HSIP projects. So look forward to more involvement on HSIP. So if you're interested, or if you're not, let me know. Okay, next table 8. Please hold on before you burn down my door on this. I will explain everything and hopefully that'll answer questions. Table 8 is that National Highway System, NHS table. You'll see that a lot of projects are removed. In fact, every project is removed except for pavement and bridge preservation. AMATS staff did meet with the Department of Transportation Deputy Commissioner Catherine Keith, James Starzyk, and Ben White to talk about this table in light of the recent STIP approval. Part of what we are required to do is demonstrate fiscal constraint for all projects in the TIP. If a project is in the AMATS area, it's no longer supposed to be in the AMATS or in the statewide, the STIP. It now is only in the TIP. And so it puts more pressure on us to make sure that we are accurate in our fiscal constraint for every project. And we have to be able to have the backup for that fiscal constraint. I was unable to find that information in the STIP about how much funding is coming for these projects, how much funding is coming to NHS projects within the AMATS area. So when we met with the deputy commissioner, I asked what would we like to do about it, and the solution was what you see on this table in front of you. Change most of the projects to illustrative, so recognizing there's still a need, and when funding comes available, those projects can be looked at to continue moving forward with them or start them up. As well as there are 3 projects they recommended complete removal of. The Seward Highway Diamond O'Malley interchange, that is completed. Seward Highway O'Malley to Diamond Boulevard, they did recommend complete removal of it. And then the 36th Avenue interchange, they did say complete removal of it. Now, you'll see that the illustrative projects are removed as well, because those are the ones that are moved to the appendix in the TIP. So they are no longer in the TIP tables. This is a reminder, illustrative projects can always come back at a later date through an amendment process. But this is recognizing that these projects are no longer in the TIP tables. They're not part of our fiscal analysis or part of our air quality conformity demonstration. So this is not AMATS staff making this unilateral decision. This is in coordination with DOT. I have to say that a couple of times because some people have been very upset about it. Next table. Sorry, let me get back to my notes. Next table, we have the transit table. So this is just making some updates to, oh, I have incorrect information on this memo. I apologize. This should not be table 9 transit. This should be table 5 congestion mitigation air quality. So
I think I'm second there.
just endless thing. Just a second. So, with some of the project slippages in FY24, some funding came available. And there is pretty limited ability to absorb that funding. So if we don't have a project that's shovel ready, we can't just start a new project and get it all done in 4 months. Thankfully, our partners at Transit are very, very accommodating and have plenty of room to utilize that funding, and we are always happy to help out Transit. So I will go through where those are, what's going on with it. So we added $6 million in CMAQ 5 bus stop and facilities improvement in FY24. We added $3.415 million in capital vehicles. That is another error for the next one. CMAQ 8 is actually demo and operations expansion project, so I will correct that as well. We added $560,000 there. And then we added $3.298 million in the Muldoon Transit Hub mixed-use development for utilities and construction in FY24. They also have a second hit of it in FY26 to continue that project. So they're able to use both. So thank you very much for Transit in their effort in helping to utilize that funding. It is going to a very worthwhile cause. And then the last one, table 10, other federal state. Updating the International Airport Charging Stations project description to reflect that the project will be taking place on the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. This was part of that coordination meeting we had with DOT to talk about the tables, and it was requested that we update the description to be more clear where this particular project is taking place in the AMATS area. It lists a number of locations, and this is specifically just for the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport charging station. Yeah, so I updated the tip tables, I updated the tip narrative as well to reflect that. And we have the comment response summary. I do recognize that a lot of the comments that came in from the public are about the Eagle River Road Rehabilitation Project and adding that back in. The reality is we don't have the funding to afford that, not necessarily right now, but in the future, as we have large scale projects coming online very quickly here. And I know some people have asked, why don't you phase it? Phasing a project does not cut down on the cost overall of a project. It actually increases the cost of a project because you have possibly multiple design hits. You have multiple construction phases. You have multiple consultants doing the work with construction, depending on when the phasing happens. I understand it's an issue. and we will continue to work with the community as best as possible. I think that's all I had, other than I'll make a update to the comment response summary to correct the error in the CMAQ title on comment number 82. I accidentally call it the bus stop and facilities improvement when it should be the demo and operations expansion project. So, okay, that was a lot. So thank you for bearing with me. I'm happy to help answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
I have a change. I don't know if it happens after we approve the.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do questions and comments, and then we'll do the public comments, and then we'll do motion. And if it's an amendment, then after the main motion is made and before we vote on the main motion,
That's what I thought.
then any amendments.
Great.
So if you want to discuss it, you're welcome to now. If you just want to wait till that point, that's fine too. Thanks for the heads up. Any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, go ahead.
I have a question. So for the projects that DOT is removing, instead of just having them become illustrative projects, is there a way to denote it different on the table so I can eyeball that?
I mean, it is
Especially for the PACs, so that they know that, how to differentiate those.
noted on there. Any of the ones that are illustrative say illustrative, any of the ones just straight up removal don't have the illustrative tag extra.
Okay,
So it's,
it's already done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
and I know it's very confusing because I'd have to line out through the illustrative projects, and it was just trying to note that they're all being removed from the table.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, all right. That helps, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the community? Some of the things that you caught, it's gonna get changed in time for going to the classified.
Yes, again, they're just basic technical edits that we can make in between. You don't necessarily need their own motion if you don't have to.
Sounds good. And so I do have just clarification, the illustrative ones, is it that the STIP doesn't put money towards them? They're not in the STIP, so they can't be in here, or how's that working again? I
Yeah.
kind of.
It's
that's one of the new
super.
information, so.
It's super confusing. So in the past, projects within the MPO area were both in the TIP and the STIP. And that was how they demonstrated fiscal constraint, because you could be like, oh, okay, DOT's putting X amount towards this project. They have X amount available because of how much revenue they bring in for NHPP or whatever they're using for it. With this last STIP update, FHWA has adjusted how that happens. And they have said that any project within the MPO boundary is no longer allowed to be in the STIP as its own individual project. It's in the TIP only, and then the TIP is incorporated by reference into the STIP. So that's how it gets into the STIP. And because of that, we now are solely really responsible for fiscal constraint demonstration. And so we have to be more strict about what information we need from DOT and other of our partners. Some of our other partners will have to be getting some more information, so there'll be some additional changes as time goes along, but this is the most immediate one because the STIP is out there right now. And so I'm sure other people can help provide clarification as well. And so basically what that means is we have to demonstrate that there is enough revenue to afford those projects. And when you look in the STIP right now, you can't find where that revenue is. And so in the discussion with DOT, they said this is the best thing to do for now until they figure out kind of what they need to do.
And as a follow-up, if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
STIP was just approved last Wednesday. And so there is a fiscal constraint table there. We've shifted to a ledger type accounting system within the STIP to address fiscal constraint. And where we need to go now is to have the time to look at it to ensure that there's a line item or something in there that says X amount of millions of dollars are programmed in our fiscal constraint calculation table for projects within the MPO boundaries. And so this impacts fast planning, AMATS, and MVP. And so historically, we would throw all of our projects in the STIP, list them out, and we knew that calculation was being taken place. But right now we don't we can't find it right now. And so that's one of the things that we're working on is trying to identify where that's at so that we can move this tip through. And then we sit down and try to figure out the solution going forward so that we can then work through TAC policy on our project analysis and discussion. But going forward, tips will be incorporated by reference. And so we won't see a DOT project within AMATS boundary, single line listed in STIP. It'll just be incorporated by reference. So we're just kind of, we had a deadline of March 31st to get the STIP approved. And so in order to do that, there were some things that we need to go back and evaluate and make sure that we're okay. So for now, the direction has been put it in as illustrative, but we're going to do our homework and kind of flesh that out a little bit.
And then once that's fleshed out, it can then come back.
Then we will bring it back to the committee as an amendment to incorporate those projects back in with fiscal constraint addressed.
Does moving them to illustrative, are there any of these that means we cannot get started in when we were wanting to get started?
Some of them are already programmed in because they're already underway and have been authorized to move forward. So if we're already in design phase, they've got their funding already allocated so they can move forward. We just won't be able to move from design to construction without having an amendment take place.
And part of the challenge was some of the projects were in the TIP without being in the TP. So been corrected. Once the BPP is fully approved, everything will line up appropriately.
So if the STIP says X amount of dollars is going to MPOs, will it actually say X amount is going to AMATS so that then within AMATS can ensure that when we do our TIP, we know the dollar amount?
What we'll probably have is some line item that says X amount of dollars are going to projects, DOT projects within the MPO boundary. And I don't know if we're gonna put all three MPOs, lump them into one pot that we say 200 million are going into it, MPO boundary projects. I'm not sure if they're gonna carve it out by funding source. We've started to develop more carving out, and for ease for public knowledge, we try to break it out on whether it's a state of good repair. We've got different funding categories and things that we're programming into. And so I'm not sure if they will carve that out specifically. But I don't think what we'll see is X amount of dollars are dedicated to AMATS for projects within the MPO boundary. It'll be a DOT. Most of these are on the NHS, so it'll be kind of a line item of DOT projects on the NHS within the boundary of the MPO so that we can have those conversations. But I'm not sure exactly how it will get worded at the end.
There will be more conversations and determination among this group. Maybe we'll get scored together with our projects, or I guess there's a lot of questions that raises for me just how that will work, but if now's not the time, we can.
I mean, that'll be something I need indication from the committees on, is if you want me to score, say they come back in a future amendment. Do you want me to score and rank them? What do you guys want me to do? So I'm gonna need some kind of direction on there. We typically try and score and rank every project, but yeah, so we're working on that. So that probably would be a good discussion or topic at some point to figure out.
It sounds like it's moving more in line with how the MPO's role is to allocate the funding and making decisions, and not just by reference like we've used to with regards to taking the STIP projects and putting them into.
It's giving the MPO more of an active role in the process and just kind of clarifying what that role is. Not saying that the MPO is the one who decides that, but the MPO does have the decision authority, whether it's incorporated into the TIP or the MTP or not. And so that's where the decision authority lies. So just for reference, other MPOs do it to where the MPOs do make the determination for all federally funded projects in their area, including the NHS projects. So when FHWA hears how we do it, they're like, what? You guys don't make the decisions on things? That's how it's done in lower 48 in some places, but not every place. So yeah.
Yes, this is going to be a good discussion as we figure that out. So thanks, Ben, for the clarification. And Aaron, are there any other questions coming from committee? Go ahead.
I have another question. So the Academy Drive, Vanguard Drive project is still in place. even though the Diamond to O'Malley project is removed. And I know that there's some correlation between the two projects. I mean, the only thing I can see with Academy Drive being in, it's funded for 2025 design money, and they may just keep going and then decide where this other project is and wrap it up at that point. And that's the only thing I can say is just, if it's not removed, due to the relationship of the other one being removed, and it does remain in place, you know, it can have a recommendation individually with that individual design. Is that, am I looking at that?
Yeah, you can still move forward with that project.
Okay.
You know, just want to make sure that the project team is aware of the other project and what are the needs of that one, just make sure everybody's discussing, and I think that's happening.
Yes.
Okay. And they're interrelated, put it that way. Right.
So design can move forward, but the funding for construction got moved back, is that?
The other piece, which would have impacts to a roadway underpass at 92nd Avenue, that Diamond to O'Malley project is now removed from the tip, but the Academy Vanguard Drive project is still in place, which would rely on that other project moving forward. But at this point, you know, there's the option of either remove this one too, or just have the project team shoot, you know, coordinating and make decisions based on this new information.
I remember the discussion being, the decision by the policy committee, if I remember right, was to have a reevaluation of the scope of the United Diamond project. Is this now saying that the decision is to just remove it, or is there still the plan to reevaluate scope? And at that point, when it's reevaluated, there can be then put it back in whatever form it needs to be.
That's the intent, is that we're gonna reevaluate the scope and then bring back to the committees that revised scope.
Okay.
And I think what we're seeing is kind of a little bit of a paradigm shift in that DOT will be more engaged in project development with AMATS committees going forward. And so it may be that at some point, and I didn't get a chance to confirm with Luke, but at some point when we get a scope that our engineers and our internal experts have kind of gone through, then the intent would be to share that scope as we're going forward. This is going to be more of a collaborative effort going forward. And so it'll give us an opportunity to get feedback on the scope before we just program a project in the STIP and TIP.
Okay, so. Perfect, that makes sense. Other questions or comments from the committee? One that I had is, you mentioned the slippage, the Tip Creek, the coastal connection. And did that rearrange funding, or if that got pushed back, it's something like come into its place in the earlier years, or how did that work?
So that's what I mentioned earlier. So when you look at the tip, you have to look at each year's kind of its own distinct funding source. So if you have a project in 24 and it slips to 25, you now have like a funding hole in 24 that you need to fill in with projects or other things. So in this case, Downtown Trail slipped to 25, which pushed Fish Creek to 26. So, you know, kind of bumping it. And the hole left in 24 was absorbed by transit projects. We were able to work with transit, and they said, we have a need. Can we use this funding? We're like, sure. We know transit's the savior, so we need to get that done. And so we worked with them and put it in.
Take me the savior. Yeah, doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I guess that's good that Jimmy was on top of things.
Always have our hand out.
Moved to the wise. Okay, that makes sense. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, are there any public comment? Go ahead, Mr. Starzak, state your name, you got 3 minutes.
James Burbick, DOT Planning. I don't know if you can address this through the administrative, edit or it needs to be added to, motion. But on table 2, tip lead ID RDY 0005. The fund code, for the match is shown as MOA, and that's state match. So congratulations, MOA.
Which the project name?
That's the, Rapid Creek Road Rehabilitation,
Mm.
RDY 5.
Okay.
That's just, article area.
Let's say you,
We can just make it as a clerical, and it's a recommendation to the policy committee anyways, and they'll approve. We'll talk to them and see if people are questioning that.
okay, so you can make that change when
Yes.
into the plus committee. Along with it anyway.
And I apologize for that. That's, I, you know, as the DOT coordinator, I should have brought that, or should have seen that earlier.
Okay, that's all right. Got another later. Thank you, James. Other comments from the public? Are there anyone online that you see out there?
I don't see anyone online with their hands raised.
Okay. Okay, what is the will of the committee?
I move that the technical advisory committee recommend approval of tip amendment number 2. The attached comment response summary.
And
Okay.
Steve Rebuffo will second.
Lou, you've got it this time, Steve. So moved by Mr. Lyon, seconded by Mr. Rebuffo. Now's the time,
Great.
Taylor.
Thanks for the prompt. Yeah, so I would just like to move, or I'd like to make an amendment that MNO 00012, the multi pathway from Tudor Road to Northern Lights Boulevard.
Which table?
Table 3, active transportation. It's a proposed pathway from Tudor Road to Northern Lights Boulevard. Instead of it getting striped, I'd like to move it to illustrative.
What number was that again?
It's on table 3, it's
Yeah.
number 12.
Well,
Yeah.
Explain a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Sure, so this fell off from what I understand because we were trying to figure out how we could match. And I think that the project is a good one. It's one the community's advocated for. It's one our department would like to see happen. And I think the Fish Creek Trail connection that's underway serve as the first part of connecting this to Tudor. We just need to have a little time to figure out match and keep it on the list.
Good. Is that, do you see any issues with that from staff standpoint?
No, we had already kind of planned for that in the future anyways, and that was the big reason why it was removed is because we were unable to get bond funding from the muni because it's not on muni right away. From PM&E, I mean, and I know that the Parks Foundation tried to get the legislative members to put a little bit of state funding to get the match for it. Wasn't able to be made, and then I know Parks and Rec have been very interested in the project, but they have been very generous with their match on other projects, so it's kind of depleted the resources at this point. So I think it's fine to put it on there as illustrative.
Kind of fits with the other things that are listed there.
Correct, yes.
Perfect. So we got a motion by Keegan. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Yes, and by Mr. Dolhas. Are there any objections to approving the amendment? Okay, hearing no objections, that is amendment is approved. Included part of the motion. Okay, any other amendments? Okay, I guess we're then ready to move to vote on the motion for sending this to the policy committee as amended. Are there any objections to the motion as amended? Okay, hearing and seeing none, the motion as amended is approved. That was a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the effort, Aaron and staff.
Yes, thank you to DOT staff for last minute helping me with a lot of this.
And thank you to the public for engaging as well. So guess we'll look forward to the DOT projects and your efforts and how that will work out. So that's definitely an exciting process. Okay, moving on to the next item on our agenda. Item 5C, the AMATS Community Advisory Committee, AAC comment on the Seward Highway to Glenn Highway PEL is now before us. I'm aware that Gavin Jones is project manager on this project and has advised me that he intends to recuse himself from both items 5, what are now 5C and 5D. So this isn't something that really happens much. This is the best thing for him to do is sit in the audience for the time that we are having this discussion. And
I think the assembly does a weird thing where they leave the room. Sorry, Galen. I know. But the problem is Galen Jones is the project manager on the PEL and he may be needed to help answer questions on the comments. So, Lori, in terms of this, does Galen need to say something about it? Excuse it or recusing himself? Okay, so we'll need that from Galen that he's recusing himself. And then do they vote on it? Or is it just automatic? Okay. And I do know that normally they leave the room, but unfortunately Galen will need to stay to help answer questions. So I know it's different, so.
yeah,
Yeah, Galen will need to go sit in the audience, so, yeah.
Sit in the corner.
okay. If you want to say, yeah.
Galen Jones, I am with DOT covering for Luke Bullen. I'm recusing myself from action items 5C and 5D due to my direct involvement with the project. And I go sit in the audience.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I'm gonna be sitting in the audience if any questions.
Yeah.
So the finding of the chair is yes, you need to recuse yourself because of your involvement and sit in the audience. It's not requisite for you to leave the room. Any difference? Is anybody next to that ruling with the chair? Okay, thanks, David. Okay, now we're moving now we'll have our discussion on those items. Aaron, if you would take it away with the explanation on 5C.
Yes, okay, so I will be upfront and honest with you. I did run this meeting for the CAC, but I don't always remember everything that they talked about in this letter. So I had hoped to get some highlights of it put together for you all, but I ran out of time, which is one of the things I'll be talking about later, why AMATS staff has no more time. So I just wanted to do a quick overview. The Community Advisory Committee did meet on March 11th to discuss comments on the Seward Highway to Glen Highway PEL. The CAC voted and approved the comments to be provided to the project team. So the reason they're coming through the Technical Advisory Committee is very similar to the AMATS staff comments. We want to make sure that the TAC and the Policy Committee are aware of what is recommended to go out. And if they have any concerns, questions, or feedback on these. I do understand that it's kind of a weird process of what's been going on. AMATS staff comments, the CAC comments, the next one will be the BPAC comments. So I think at some point, we as AMATS kind of need to get together to decide how comments are handled. Do we keep it this way? I like it this way just because then it gives the committees the opportunity to engage, as well as keeping the TAC and PC informed. But I do know it's a lot for the project team to be getting 3 sets of comments from AMATS, plus the policy committee could always comment, or the TAC could always comment. So just keep that in mind, that I think it's good to have this as part of the process, but we may need to work on how that whole process works in the long term. So please don't punish the committees if the process is confusing. So they had some general comments on there talking about, focusing on VMT and how it's incompatible with or is an incomplete proxy for environmental impacts, evaluate whether the alternatives allow for incremental improvements to the area, even if the main project does not get funded for 30 to 50 years. So kind of talking about that interim solution while a final solution is decided upon. And really focusing on, what's best for the community. The next comments, they had specific comments on the actual alternatives themselves. And so you can see them there that, while it's important, while depressing the highway is an improvement, the alignments do impact private property in the area. And to be mindful of that. And how, mobility and livability in the same area it's hard to get both of those to balance out. So think about that as you're going forward. And there is some concerns about the viaduct or the impacts to the Chester Creek Greenbelt. I think pretty similar comments that you've heard from other folks over the time. But they are before you today for you to review and recommend edits or approval to the policy committee. Again, if these are approved by the policy committee to be sent out, they would be sent out from the AMATS CAC, not from the policy committee itself, or that is what is staff recommending. The policy committee can do whatever it wants. So the same as the staff comments. So I can help try and answer some questions, but that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Again, the only comment I would make is that I remember seeing comments previously, and I don't remember if it was from the CAC or the Bike and Ped Committee. I think it was the CAC, and they were a little frosty. And these are, I think these are pretty good. These are a little less emotional and very, very, fact-based. We can disagree on certain things in there, but they seem to be, these are good, constructive comments, I think, for the most part. So I appreciate that a lot.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Other questions or comments? Okay, so are there any comments from the public? Okay, please state your name. You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Bob Butera, and I'm kind of speaking because I'm looking at the comments here. I wanted to add a little bit to alternative D. And I have familiarity with that area because I am on the East Chester Park Master Planning Committee. And so obviously this has a huge alternative D, which is the route of Chester Creek, has a huge impact on the park. But that park, their word for it, is a park for a community that's next door to it. And I have not seen that community mentioned in any document yet. But there's a senior center, 250 units, senior housing. There is a god awful amount of rental housing. I'm guessing it's in the 500 to 1,000 units. I don't ever see that mentioned anywhere. I wanted to get that on the record. That alternative D is right adjacent to all this. That's it.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments from the public? Not seeing it online either. What is the will of the committee?
I don't see the memo as suggested.
I think it was
It's just the set of
It's the
comments.
top of them.
So,
And recommend approval with any edits.
yeah.
So here we go.
Stop on the wrong one. In case anyone's wondering. Can make the same motion to the next one, but I recommend that we forward these comments to the policy committee for their approval. Guess that's what we're asking them to do, and then they could suggest they get sent out for the team, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the policy committee is the one that gets to decide whether or not these comments go out from the CAC and or the BPAC, so.
As official AMATS
Right, so.
and how they want them to be, if it's from the CAC or off.
And we'll clarify when we put this in there for the next action. I didn't do it this go around, so I apologize, is that these would be coming from the CAC themselves, if approved. unless the policy committee wants different, but staff's recommendations, they come from the CAC record.
Is that your motion? Is that what you're?
Exactly it.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Lyon. Do we have a second? Okay, second by Ms. Keegan. Do we have any objections to the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Now let's move on to the 5D. This is the BPAC comments on the Seward event connection on an environmental leakages study. Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm actually gonna have to ask somebody to fill in for me because I did not attend this BPAC meeting. It was at the same time as the CAC meeting, so I was not able to be in both places. So if the committee would indulge me, Emily Weiser is here. She is part of BPAC, and Lindsay Hyduk is here as well, and she can probably help fill in if need be. They did bring these and talk about them at the BPAC, so they would be able to speak on them if you're okay with that.
Sure. That probably makes sense for Lindsay, right? Because you're the new chair, if I recall correctly.
I'm the new chair.
Okay.
Yeah, but Emily, helped take the lead on putting them together.
Okay. We're all ears.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Emily Weiser. I'm a member of the BPAC. So yeah, we had a good meeting with the project team, I think towards the end of February. And came away from that and wrote up our comment on the project and approved those at our March 11th meeting. We started off by saying that we support the staff comments from AMATS, so hopefully not providing too much duplication for the project team's sake in terms of repeating comments that are already in there, but we may have emphasized a couple things that we felt strongly about as well. So our overarching support was for the 2050 MTP alternative, as we see that as best supporting the project purpose and need, especially balancing livability and community and connectivity with mobility needs. We'd like to see some more information provided about that, mapping it, storing it eventually, looking at how the various projects on that list fit together, and maybe there's various options for taking some of those projects and maybe not others, depending on how they fit together. So we'd love to see more about that. We'd also really encourage considering public transit as a way to get people through the area without or even reducing car traffic, and also potentially using railroad for freight instead of sending freight along that corridor. That would be a great way to reduce those negative impacts without the huge cost for additional negative impacts of simply moving the highway. We also noted a few things that we liked. So it was great to see the bike ped study included in there. That's kind of the first of its kind for Anchorage. We would like to see a little more information about how that was incorporated into the alternatives that were developed. That wasn't quite clear. We also obviously support the regional trail or greenway that's present in I think every alternative. So that's great to see. And also turning Gamble Street back into more of like a community focused street with local needs rather than mobility as a priority. So yeah, I think our comments are all available there. We appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the committee? I have a question on, when you say Gamble Street as a main street, does that mean one way that's narrower or two way?
So I think Main Street is the term that the project team uses. I do think it's two-way envision. And yeah, more of a place to be rather than have this drive through.
Okay. So Main Street read two way. Is that accurate? Okay. I guess,
You want me to?
sure.
Yeah, Galen Jones with Alaska DOT, that's correct. The main street that we're proposing with all of the alternatives on Gamble would be a return to a two-lane, two-way street.
Two lane mean one in each
One
direction.
in each direction, correct. And that is compatible with the long-term goals of Fairview in adopted plans. Not the three-lane couplet. That's an MTP 2050. It's not the long-term goal of Fairview.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Okay, are there any comments from the public? Go ahead. State your name and-
My name's Aves Thompson. I'm here representing myself. In full transparency, I sit on the Port Commission, but I'm not speaking for the Port Commission today. I'm speaking for myself. My background is in regulation of commercial vehicles and advocacy for commercial vehicles. And I'd like to hear some more about the shift from truck to rail and what kind of accommodations would be needed. What's in mind? Are you proposing a freight rail yard near the port and then one in South Anchorage? It would add considerable cost to the capital improvements initially. And also would increase the handling cost of the freight, as you would have to offload from the ship onto the rail and then take the rail down to the south end, for example, and then offload onto the truck, and then deliver the freight. So I think some serious consideration needs to be given to that option. It would be very, very costly and would add to increased operational costs in the future.
Great, thank you for that comment. That's a very good one. And it looks to me like what is in here talks about kind of leaves that to be part of the discussion. Is that your understanding, Brian, as you look at it?
I had read this before we got here today.
Okay.
I was in a stakeholders meeting or something regarding this project, and we did have a lot of discussions about truck movements in and out of the port. I'm not entirely sure what specific truck movements they're trying to get out of this corridor. But the fact of the matter is 75% of what comes into the port goes to Midtown. And there's no good way to get there other than either Minnesota or Angry Gamble or C Street. So I'm not sure what would be improving by building some sort of yard in South Anchorage versus.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd like to support Brian's comments here, that a lot of that freight is still going to be going through downtown somehow. It's on DC or was a Gamble or Angler, because there are locations to which freight is delivered that are in those areas, and there's no other way to get there. And I guess what are we trying to accomplish here? What are the origins and destinations? Is the problem between 36th and Eagle River? Is the problem between 36th and downtown? Is the problem between 36th and the port? I'm not sure. We might be asking too much of one project to accommodate all of our wishes here. So there's a careful balance that needs to be reached to support mobility, livability, freight mobility, safe and efficient freight systems to support us. Because you always remember that truck brings everything we have, all the way from sliced bread to brick beams. And somehow or another, we have to accommodate the movement of that freight. Otherwise, we'll go to the store and there'll be nothing there. So I compliment John Cecil on his freight advisory committee. I sat as chairman of that committee for a number of years. We worked hard on this issue, and it's not easy. And I'm not saying that it is, but it is critical to factor in the freight movement along with the livability and the mobility features of this plan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Thompson. I really appreciate those comments. And yeah, let's maybe have a little bit more time to think about that while we take any other additional comments that might be out to the public. Are there any other members of the public who would like to make a comment? Anybody in the room? Looks like nobody online.
Nobody online.
Okay. So what is the will of the committee?
Just read the memo, folks. Someone can do this one. It's right at the top.
Well, I will move to recommend that it be forwarded to the policy committee with their approval.
Second.
The approval as comments from the BPAC is to be submitted to the.
Yes.
Okay, moved by Ms. Cohos, second by Mr. Ryan. Go ahead, Ben, do you have a question?
I don't know if it's an amendment worthy, but I would like to make a recommendation that I concur with Aaron that we got to find a process by which we do this. So that I think that this is a good step forward in that these are coming directly from the advisory committees, because I don't want to water down or take away their ability to provide comments. I also don't feel comfortable making edits or changes to it to go to policy. And so it kind of puts us in an awkward, and this could be just my inexperience being on the TAC, but it is an awkward situation because I value the input that's put in here, and I'm speaking on behalf of the project team, but we've talked a lot about this internally. We value all input. This is a PEL, it's a planning and environmental. So it's outside of NEPA, it's prior to NEPA. It isn't, we are not working on full design. This is very, very preliminary in our project development process. And so getting all this input now is incredibly helpful for us as a department. But looking forward to this, we're not gonna be the only ones that bring projects to the table. And so whether it's a muni project or a rail project or anything, I would feel uncomfortable modifying another group's comments to try and get it through approved on a policy. So I second Aaron's comment that we need to, and I want to just put something formally in the record, that we need to come up with as an organization, a process that's beneficial to our committee, our advisory committees, but we're also an advisory committee. But I just feel kind of uncomfortable either recommending modifications to someone else's comments or approving them with the AMATS banner, when I know that there may be things in here that I'd like to address.
Yeah.
So that being said, I don't have a problem moving these forward, but allowing the policy team to move it, and then it goes out under our advisory committee's banner. But I also think that we need to look at our operating agreement and see what our authorities are and what our responsibilities are as advisory committees. And so I think we need to take a look at this, and I just wanted to make sure that we captured that somewhere, Aaron.
That's a procedural.
Yeah,
Can I ask a procedural?
go for it.
Procedural, sorry, can't put that up today. Just wondering, is there a more appropriate time or manner for comments like this to come from committees about PEL, or, like how we take it during the MPT, excuse me, the MTP comment periods and things like that? I mean, should they even be coming to the TAC and the committee? Should they just be going directly to the project
I
committee
think
team?
that's what Ben was speaking to
Yeah.
in Aaron's comments. We need to figure out a better procedure that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
but is there one in place already that we're just?
I can kind of speak to it. So the reason it's coming before the TAC and PC is, in the past, we would just send them directly from the committee. The policy committee has been a little more hands-on with everything that we do as AMATS, and they want to see these things coming through. And so this is our process of getting them to see things. Everything is funneled through the TAC before it goes to the policy committee. So if there is a desire for AMATS as a whole to say, you know what, it's okay as you as the BPAC or the CAC, send your comments directly to it. Then we just need that kind of instructions from the policy committee. But in the past, the committees have been a little more fiery in their language. And it has become kind of a problem for AMATS. Because they would say something like, you as DOT are intentionally killing people. And then it would be AMATS's banner on that memo and get everybody kind of really upset. And so the idea here is to be like, okay, are we comfortable with what's being sent out, that it's not super inflammatory or anything? And yeah, it may need some tweaking, but okay, we're generally okay with it. I think that's where we all need to discuss from the different committees to what are we all comfortable with? Because I know that the subcommittees are very, I know the CAC, sorry, I can't speak for BPAC. CAC is very bothered by the fact that everything has to go through the policy committee before it can be sent out. It feels like, in their words, they don't have any autonomy. They have no real reason to exist, because if everything has to be vetted by the TAC and PC, what's the point? I'm like, well, you're an advisory committee. That's your job, is to come up with these things and bring them through the process. I think it may be that we all need to get together and be like, what is the point of the committees? What does the policy committee want from them? I think it's a good refresh, because it's been a hot minute since we've discussed the subcommittees, and we have so many new people that I think it would be a good opportunity to do that.
And with the event that, with the TIP and STIP relationship, this may become more and more of a topic for this committee. And so I think there's merit in us discussing how we want to process comments from our advisory committees and ourselves to the policy.
Okay, any other discussion on
It was not a formal amendment or anything, but it was just thoughts.
discussion on the motion is valuable, so.
I guess, but that's where I think PPAC needs to have the ability to send their opinions and stuff. Problem is, there's stuff here that I can't support. So I don't want to be stuck in a position saying they can't have their opinion or comment just because from my own professional opinion, some of this doesn't work. And so I'm kind of stuck with halfway over the fence on this.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sarah?
In a way, it's almost like we're copied. This is their voice, this is their input. And instead of it going directly to a project team without any awareness, I like the opportunity to get a read on what are people thinking. So instead of me feeling like I'm actually suggesting that anybody's approving anything, it's just approving that they will see it. I don't even know if that's really even necessary, but I like the opportunity of us in essentially being copied and knowing what these voices, what's the feel of the community and the interest groups. That part I really do appreciate. So I think the uncomfortableness of like, am I really improving anything, or I'm having an opportunity to hear. I like that opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I apologize because it's not just BPAC. This is all of that. I didn't know what was the appropriate time to bring it up, and so I did it here, but I agree with Brian. There's things in here that if I were to submit them under my banner, I would comment on them or respond to them. And we've done the same thing with the staff comments. We've sent them to policy, and policies provided them to the project team to kind of counter and clarify and clean up a little bit and talk to. So I think we need to take a look at it, and won't beat that dead horse.
Yeah, that sounds good. So my understanding is then the motion that's before us is to forward them as is to the policy committee with the recommendation that they be submitted from the BPAC to the project team for the project team to then respond to. And we're not like putting our staff saying that we feel one way or the other. We're not making comments to that regard so much as we're just saying we feel comfortable with these being sent and responded to. Is that sound accurate?
Yeah, it's very similar to what the policy committee did, is they don't endorse the comments, but they support them going to the project team for part of the process.
And so in a way, if we didn't feel like these were appropriate to come from AMATS, whether they be fiery or whether they be something inflammatory, whether it be something that we just didn't feel comfortable with, then that seems to be right now how we're doing it. We would not support moving them forward. But it would be good to clarify all this in a work session. So that makes a lot of sense.
I have no problem getting a work session together for all the committee members. I love doing it. I know, multiple work sessions. Let's just have a field day.
Mr. Chairman, would it be in order for me to make a request?
It is not public.
Yeah,
Public stuff is done. It is now with the committee members.
as much as I would love to give you the opportunity, I was thinking at the same that we're in the middle of,
Well, there'll be time later for comments.
yeah,
Yeah, public
After
comments.
this item.
yeah, for sure there will be. So we would love to hear from you at that point. Okay, so any other committee discussion?
Yeah, that's the scale. I'm just gonna, put a little context to what is inside so far. I want to say that I've shared the opinions about, and why and now, the other things. I'll share your opinions about. And it's a very stable spirit, with support, with the same support in the comments. We're not saying the general support was in the comments. Just want to comments to go straight to the policy committee that can decide how to do this comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Other committee discussion? Okay, then, is there any opposed to, the motion before us? Okay, hearing no opposition, the motion passes. So thank you everyone for your engagement in that. I feel like we've got some good perspectives and good insight, and would be great to have the additional follow-on discussions about how to move forward on this.
And thank you to the advisory committees that are providing the comments. I think, again, I'll speak for the project team, but we do appreciate the comments and the input that helps us.
Yeah, we're more informed as a technical advisory committee because we got these comments, we got to look at it and we got to hear from the public about that. So I do like all of that, even though the committees might feel like maybe they have to go through a few other hoops. Really, those hoops are probably even more valuable than it going straight to the project. So,
Yes.
okay, so let's move on to the next item.
Make a motion.
Yes, we are now through the two that you were accused for, so you are welcome to come back to the table. Thanks for playing double roles here. My pleasure. Okay, so the next item before us is the transit asset management target recommendations. And is this one that you, Aaron, will intro? Or
Yep.
maybe?
I will. Okay, everybody, so as you know, performance measures, again, are coming around. So before you are the transit asset management targets, or TAM targets from the Alaska Railroad. I did get sent these a couple months ago and have just now gotten around to getting them on the agenda, so I apologize for the delay. As you know, every couple of years, every year, we have to set targets for specific performance measures, and these are for the railroad. So the ones before you today are rolling stock equipment, facilities, and infrastructure. Basically, talk about useful life benchmark. If they've non-revenue support service and maintenance vehicle equipment, again, useful life benchmark. And then performance measures for facilities, and then performance measures for the infrastructure. So the 24 targets are before you in the memo. And then in the actual document itself, you don't have to switch to this one, okay? In the actual document itself, you can see information about how those targets are set, why they were set, and then you can also find information on previous targets for the 23 targets and the actual years and see how the railroad is doing. AMATS's requirement is to adopt targets for these transit asset management performance measures. Past targets that we have done are just adopted with the Alaska Railroad sets because we as AMATS do not have funding or program, or we don't fund any of this. We just program them into the TIP based on coordination with the Alaska Railroad. So we leave it up to them to ensure they are meeting their targets, and we show how we are helping them assist in meeting their targets by programming projects into the TIP. Super mouthful. So. And so they're before you, and Brian hopefully can help if you guys have any questions. But staff's recommendation, oops, it's a little out of order, sorry. Staff's recommendations is asking the technical advisory committee to recommend adopting the Alaska Railroad Transit Asset Management targets for 2024 as outlined above to the policy committee. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks. I know I had the same question when Aaron and I were on the phone earlier in the week. Let's explain that the 0% does not mean that it's the railroad's goal to have no passenger rail cars by the end of 2024. If we can explain what those target numbers are actually telling us, and that lower is better, unless I remembered wrong.
No, thank you for the reminder. So, the targets you have before you, most of them are useful life benchmark. So basically what they're saying is that for the first two, for the passenger rail cars and locomotives, they have 0% of their stock, their rolling stock is met or exceeding their useful life benchmark. So that's pretty good. Good job, railroad. So the lower, the better is what we want for these targets, because they're basically saying, yep, we're keeping up with making sure our stuff is up to date. And I believe the same for equipment and facilities and infrastructure. The lower, the better.
Okay,
Hopefully that helps.
thanks for clarifying that, Steve.
Sir?
Thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any
Okay.
other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, how about from the public? Are there any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, what is the will of the committee?
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lindenmuth, second by Ms. Ackman.
There you go.
And so the motion is to approve, I guess, recommend for approval to the policy. I'm assuming that's what you. Okay, perfect. Is that the same? Okay. Are there any discussion? Any opposition? Any?
Sorry, Brent, I actually have-
Okay, go ahead.
So, public transportation also has a transit asset management requirement. And so one of the things we, Steve, Aaron and I, when we had our little briefing or earlier this week, sorry, was that perhaps it would be helpful for the committees if transit and the railroad kind of got on a similar schedule. I would like to have mine done this time frame of year. So I think that's something that we can try to do in the future, is bring them, together at around the same time, so that you're not seeing ours, you're not seeing theirs. And what are we doing? Why are we doing this again and again? So
Okay, there's gonna be one coming from you.
it'll be a little late this time, but we'll try to get on a schedule.
Sounds good. Okay, anyone opposed to approving the motion? Okay, the motion is approved. So that moves us on to the new item 5F that we added, which is the AMATS letter of support for DOT PPPP grant application. And it looks like you provided us a copy.
I did provide a copy in person. I'll have to share my screen really quickly so I can provide it to the, sorry, look, I didn't get it over to you if you just a second, but I can,
We can pause just for a minute while you do that. Stress.
quick. Get the memo and the, more topped up. Okay. Okay, there we go. So before you is a quick memo of explanation on what we're looking at today, and you have the committees have the physical copy, and there's some physical copies in here for the members of the public as well. So Department of Transportation reached out earlier this week asking for a letter of support for this PPPP grant. This is the Prioritization Process Pilot Program. I love FHWA and USDOT's acronym development. Whoever does this does not get paid enough, I tell you.
They've got an acronym coordinator in Washington DC somewhere.
We'll just add another P to it and call it good. Okay, so what's being requested here is that AMATS provide a letter of support for a DOT's grant application for this pilot program. It did come in at the last minute, and thankfully I met with Ben and James to have a nice coordinated discussion on this. And just give everybody kind of the timeline of events so you understand why this is so last minute. The notice of funding opportunity was released on February 22nd, 2024, so not that long ago. And applications are due May 1st. So DOT has been scrambling to coordinate internally whether they were going to put in an application for this, what it was going to be for, et cetera. So, you know, we all agree that it can do better in future, and we're all working on that. But I do appreciate DOT kind of rushing to get this information to us before you today. So this grant application is this letter. Switch over to the letter real quick. So as you can see here, it's on behalf of AMATS. We write to express our strong support for DOT's FY24 PPPP grant. So this grant application, and correct me if I'm wrong, DOT, is going to be putting it in for the STIP process to help develop an actual scoring and ranking process that is transparent to the public. So the public will be involved, and POs will be involved in helping to develop it and put all of that together. And so after talking with DOT about this, I feel that it is good for us as AMATS to support this. This will only benefit us all in the long run. And as it says in the letter, we look forward to being involved in this effort to helping make this a very transparent and strong process. That's all I had, and I'm sure DOT can add more if you have questions. Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments? Go ahead, Mr. White.
I think the one thing I'd like to add, first of all, apologize for this coming to you all very late in the process. I think our discretionary grant process, if you have a there's two avenues. One is planning, one is construction. A typical project that goes out to construction. And so for like mega infra, the other discretionary grants that tend to lead towards a construction project, sometimes we're given 6 months from the time that the notice of funding opportunity to the time the application's due. This is a planning opportunity. And so I think that part of the reason why it was an intent to put it out real quick and fast and dirty. So we've had a couple meetings internally on this. And as Aaron mentioned, one of the things we're looking at trying to do, our application is in progress right now. We're working on drafting it. And essentially what we're looking at is a criteria matrix. That's something that we can do kind of a plug and play as things change in our economy, things change in our state. Certain things become a little bit more critical for us. If economic vitality in the state becomes something that needs to be weighted a little heavier in our analysis of projects, then we have that plug and play that we can move within that matrix after discussion. And what we're looking to do is, because all of us have to do kind of criteria, project evaluation, project analysis before we select projects. And we've got multiple programs within the department, but we also have 3 MPOs that we want to coordinate with all 3 MPOs and the department and kind of help get a system or a criteria matrix that helps us prioritize projects that can be shared, and it's more consistent across the state so that it's not just DOT does it this way. DOT does it 2 or 3 different ways on our programs. And so it's a little bit more of a concise, consolidated effort that's shared a little bit more openly with the public and with others. So the intent is to try and grab this funding to allow us to get assistance in here to develop it. And so as of this moment, and I've got a couple folks online if you guys have additional questions. Mary Hoffman is our grants coordinator. She's kind of helping us put all of our grant applications together. And then I've got Judy Chapman, who's our deputy director of project delivery. They're kind of spearheading this. They're online if there's some specific questions, but right now we're just kind of fleshing out the scope, and we needed to get letters of support prior to May 1st, and we weren't going to have another opportunity with TAC and policy. So I will endeavor to get these to you in more advance with a little bit more discussion in the future. So with that, I'd like to suggest we move these forward.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead. Ms. Blaha.
Full support of having this go forward. I'm almost surprised that there isn't something like that exists already. But with the different MPOs and looking at equity and need and transparency, I think it's a a great idea on moving forward with this type of effort.
We have several programs that we've got different scoring criteria that have been developed in the past,
Mhm.
but we don't have a unifying
Yeah.
all projects go through the same box.
Yeah.
So this is gonna get us there.
Good one. Good idea.
Yeah, that sounds good. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Next one that I have one question is I think about the pilot program. Is it a pilot program because it's developing that matrix? And so that's what the funding is intended to like try it out and see how it works. And if it works well, then it can be adapted. Is that kind of what this is geared for?
One of the advantages, Federal Highways uses the term pilot in a lot of these grant opportunities for us to think innovatively and outside of the box and what's a little bit different than normal. And so that's part of the reason why they put the pilot in there. And so we're trying to craft our application to meet the conditions of the grant opportunity. And so we're not sure exactly if this is, some states throw it into a GIS and let AI kind of do the calculations and we just plug in the elements and then it runs through a box and out spits the answer. And so I don't think HAL is the solution for us. But whatever the matrix is, whatever that looks like, we have the ability to kind of pull levers and say, hey, safety is a big concern right now. And so we need to increase safety. And that's those projects that address safety is a higher concern and will score higher. And so it gives us a little bit more flexibility in an open process. And I think right now internally, we could say, state of good repair, we need to address state of good repair because of potholes and things like that. But there's not a mechanism by which the public can see that we've said, hey, state of good repair should get an extra 10 points because that's a priority for us. And so this will be more of an open, transparent process where we're allowing not just the MPOs, but the public in general to help us prioritize our workload.
And so the grant funds that process, the ability to do more outreach.
Yes,
So they send things out, maybe have a consultant who can
yes.
kind of facilitate that so that it just happens more quickly instead of, if you don't get it, then you probably would do the similar thing, it's just gonna take longer.
And I believe, and Judy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intent is to get a consultant or someone with some experience in helping states develop these to come on board here in Alaska and help us develop our matrix for project prioritization.
Okay, sounds great. Let's see. Are there any questions or comments from the public? All right, questions or comments from the committee? Okay, none. Okay, how about comments from the public? Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, this is Emily Weiser again, speaking as a member of the public. This is really exciting. I'm really glad to hear this. It was hard to comment on this as a member of the public without those selection criteria and prioritization criteria. So I don't know if you need letters of support from the public as well. That would help. If so, I'd encourage you to advertise that option and you'll get to do something like that. And state legislators, I know, and also be interested in states as well.
And I believe going forward, this is gonna be a public process. And so I think right now we're just looking at getting help to get the grant. And it may be that we need to get more support at a future date but I think right now we've got support from some tribes. We've got support letter coming from Fast Planning is already working on one. I believe we're working on getting one from MVP and other stakeholders. So I think right now we've got a lot of support, but I do feel that going forward, if we're successful and we obtain the grant funding, then the next step is to bring together some stakeholders to help us kind of craft where we go from there. And I think having public input would be, I anticipate we'll run this out to the public before we do anything, and that would be great to get some feedback on.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Any other comments from the public? Online? Okay, perfect. What is the will of the committee?
Make a motion.
Sure.
Make a motion that we recommend to the policy committee that that this be allowed to be provided to the department in support of our effort of PPPP grant application.
I support. Okay, moved by Mr. White, seconded by Mr. Levy. Any discussion from the committee? Yes, the one item that I have is, does it make sense that it be signed by just Aaron, or that it include policy committee chair, and the book committee chair? Like, will that make it a more like powerful letter that has additional signatures of committee members or committee chairs, policy chair?
Typically, no. The big problem is Sean Holland with DOT is the committee chair, so it's weird having DOT sign its own letter of support, which is why it almost always comes from me. FAST does the same thing, anyway. It's typically from the director who sends the letter, as long as it's going through. If there's a desire, we can add CCing the policy committee and the technical advisory committee to it, so it looks, we did go through you all. Yes.
And I think we tried to draft the letter with we, to try and address some of the, to make it appear that it's policy committee that's made the decision for providing support.
Okay. Sounds good. That makes sense. Good point. Okay, another discussion? Is there any objection to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. That also is very exciting.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Hopefully we did it. Okay, so now the next item on the agenda is we're moving into the project and final updates. We do have about 20 minutes left on our agenda. Do we have sufficient time to make through both of these?
We do. I will also have a general or a comment I'll need to make to provide you guys some information as well after we're done with these two items. So we should make it as long as we keep it.
There are several of us that have great agenda today.
Yeah, we gotta make sure we are done
We
on
won't be
time.
able to, so.
Okay.
Go ahead, 6A.
Thank you. 6A, so we have before us the first quarter obligation report now. It's okay, don't freak out. I'm gonna preface that before we get to the bottom. So, every quarter, we are required to bring forward an obligation report on how we're doing in getting our funding obligated, the federal funding. This is the first quarter report. We are required to be plus or minus 15%. Well, would you please scroll to the bottom to give the bad news to everybody?
It's close.
We are close at 52.37% or $26 million under program. Basically, like I said, don't freak out. This obligation report reflects admin mod number 2. It does not reflect the TIP amendment number 2 that you all just approved or recommended for approval. It won't reflect that until quarter 2, quarter 3 of the obligation report. So that $26 million is not actually $26 million. We are balanced based on TIP amendment number 2. And so what typically happens is James helps put together the obligation report to be like, here's where you're at, Aaron. And I'm like, oh my God, we have things that are slipping. We need to do an amendment. And we get an amendment. But the amendments take so long, we can't really hold the ob reports on for 6 months. We need to process them in a regular case. So you will see that there are things in there, like the downtown trail connection is slipping, that the Fish Creek Trail is slipping. And so it's kind of showing you some of the things that we adjusted as part of TIP amendment number 2. But we need to bring this forward to you all. We need to be transparent and honest in our process of what is going on. So we are moving forward as best as we can. And I think we're going to be doing a pretty good job. Recognize that part of the delay has also been the STIP not being approved. So now that that is partially approved, we are good to go. Hopefully TIP amendment 2 will be approved and we can get all of our funding obligated in time for the end of the fiscal year. So staff will be working very diligently to make that happen. So I can help answer any questions you have, but are here for you. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Go ahead, Mr. Starzak.
And James Starzik, DOT planning. This report, I do put this one together, and I just wanted, if there is information that you'd like to see included in here that's not reflected, I'd be more than happy to field any suggestions and try my best to accommodate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Starzak. Okay, so let's move then to item 6B, the Q1 project status report.
Yeah, I'll screw this one real quick, James. So yes, every quarter, along with the OB report, James does help put together the quarterly project update. He reaches out to all the various project teams and project managers to get the current status of projects. I believe these are all AMATS projects and DOT projects within our area to the best ability, or just the ones that are AMATS funded. Thank you. Just the ones that are AMATS funded. DOT has its own kind of status report. So these do include planning projects as well. So happy to include those on there for you. So this is just for your information to see where we're at with projects. James, just real quick, we need to update one of the projects on here because it still says Lois Drive and 32nd Avenue, and that's changed to just 32nd Avenue. So we'll have to capture that after we're done. I just didn't want to forget it, sorry. And so if you guys have any questions or comments on the projects, please let me know. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any comments from the committee? Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
How much of a pain would it be to add in some sort of funding, either the funding in the life of the tip or total funding or something, just throw in some kind of dollar and figure in there, like informative.
Through the chair, James Barzik, again, I can definitely take that under consideration. You know, as we all know, the fluid nature of scheduling budget. It is pretty profound. But, you know, in my regular duties, that's, you know, a lot of what I do is kill that and convey that information to AMATS. So theoretically, I should be able to put that together and get it added in here. So I will give it a shot and see what comes of it.
Even if there's a footnote that says these numbers are from the original tip or tip member tip, you know, just something would be.
Something that just says, you know, current schedule and budget, as of the active, tip.
Yeah,
Or
something like that.
active tip.
I think.
Sure.
And I think this is an absolutely wonderful document, super helpful, and it's great to keep up this way. It's really helping our transparency, so I like it.
Yeah. That's a great suggestion. I would say, you know, try it out, see what additional things you can fold in.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, the first time I put it all in, it should be, it's set, you know, and until there's another amendment, those are the numbers that are programmed in the tip. So, you know, given all of that, I think that's a totally reasonable.
Sounds good. Okay, any other comments from the public? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Ames Thompson again. As you transmit these advisory committee comments and
Can
suggestions.
we wait 1 sec? The comments are right now just on the project.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll move to the number of comments here in just a little bit.
I
Is that all right?
apologize.
Okay, no problem. Okay, any other comments from the public on this awesome performance or awesome quarterly project update? Okay. Then we'll move to the public pretty soon. Next is, we don't have general items on here, but should we do that now?
We removed it.
Okay,
We're just going straight to comments and stuff like that. We have too much on our agendas generally, so.
okay.
Oh yeah, I do have a comment, real quick, just to give everyone a heads up. Chelsea Ward Waller has accepted a position, outside of AMATS. So she is currently on much needed vacation and she will be back in a couple of weeks and she is moving to PM&E to help support them. So we're very excited that she's staying within the municipality of Anchorage and will be helping us out. We look forward to working with Chelsea because she will be an integral part of the transportation process. So she's getting a lot of information from AMATS and hoping to help PM&E out in their process. So look forward to that. However, that means that AMATS is a little strapped for a time, as John and I are the only staff members here right now. So in the short term and for the foreseeable future, until we can hire more staff, we will be pretty pressed to focus just on our required projects. As you know, we have corrective actions we have to address. We have an MTP we have to start, another update of the MTP. And everything else. So this never-ending cycle that we appreciate is pushed on us. So I know that some members of the public have reached out recently for research requests or requests for other things like that, and I'm unfortunately having to go let them know that I and the rest of AMATS staff, John, are not available at this time. So, I would strongly ask that you please bear with us while we are trying to hire for the positions. There is not a lot of interest in planning positions, it seems, in our community. We've had one spot open since September with little to no interest. So it's going to be a very stressful time. I will be taking Chelsea's projects, both the Complete Streets, Street Topology Project, the Climate Action, and I'll be assisting with the Rec Trails Plan. So my limited time will become even more limited. If I have to not attend project meetings and other things like that, I apologize. But it may mean that we shift and adjust how communication is given to AMATS because I am no longer going to be able to take everything on and distribute it out to the committees. So I'll be working with the project teams as time goes on to readjust. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up and just please bear with us. Thank you.
And thank you, Aaron, for that. So we can know what's going. Yeah, how things are being experienced right now in EMS. And I encourage anybody listening who wants to be part of this process, come and apply. Okay, so moving on to then the committee comments. Or were you saying?
I have a couple.
Okay,
I'll go fast. So transit is also hiring multiple positions. So any interest there, please let me know. We are doing our final push for public involvement surrounding the downtown transit center site selection study. We are down to 3 locations. All have been identified in the downtown area. We had a stakeholder engagement meeting yesterday. There was an open house yesterday, and then there's also an open house wrapping up today. But the online open house is live now and it runs through May 3rd. So you can find that open house online at anctransitcenter.com, or you can find it on People Mover social media or our website. So we're trying to gather as much public feedback and information as we possibly can so that the project team can put forward the proposal, and then ultimately the administration will make a decision as to how we move forward. So.
okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Longman.
It's April, gravel trains have started, along with our annual appeal for DOT to grade separate C Street. Be demonstrated around rush hour each time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Longman, for the update. Are there other members of the committee with updates? One that I'll provide is that it is about the time of year when we do weight restrictions. And so DOT and MOA are going to be starting, if I recall, next week. So that goes on as a way to protect our road base so that during the thaw cycle, we minimize impacts and hopefully avoid the costly repairs that come. So, and then also we have about a month before snow tires come off. So, but it looks like we still need them.
We still need them.
We're a few inches away from the records. We at least got to get there, right? Okay, other comments from the committee? Okay, looks like we have some time for some public comments now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm Dave Thompson speaking on behalf of myself. And I would like to suggest or request that as you transmit these advisory committee comments to the policy committee, that you include perhaps not verbatim, but summarized comments from the public. Would that be appropriate?
Sounds so.
Because they were heard in public session here at the TAC, and I think it should be included as informational, at least for the policy committee.
I think if we provide them, there's always a chance to explain them.
Yeah, I mean, the public's welcome to show up to the PC and talk through it. I can also provide the recording of today. But the public comments were not incorporated in as part of the recommendation or approval by the TAC. So, and I'll be honest, I don't have the time to go back and listen to the recording and put them together. If you would like to send them to me, based on your public comments, I can provide them to the committee members. If that would help a lot on my end, if you could do that. Or if any member of the public is interested in providing it to me, I can forward it to the committees, the policy committee.
There will be a chance both for the public to comment at that meeting or to send information to Aaron or to send it to the committee members. So I think there are opportunities to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, so as I understand it, you're asking that I attend another meeting or that I submit my comments in writing to the executive director. Is that what your response is?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Or you could reach out to members of the policy committee as well.
Yeah, James Starrs with DOT, just to kind of add my 2 cents to this, this comment from Hayes. It would also be reflective of his comments if the policy committee was just made aware. There were public comments. You can review the recorded session to see exactly what was said. And that way it relieves the administrative burden on Aaron. Ames doesn't have to put together a memo or return to another meeting, and the policy committee has the opportunity to hear exactly what was said.
Thanks for the suggestion. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned at 2:54.
Just like, no, it's like we're on our way.